So Brian, and Will. So you got on you're on the back end, right, of the infrastructure of. I mean, you are what I'd say 90% of the population has no idea that goes on that allows things to work. What are you guys considering now? Knowing that this is coming and it's AC. Like what are you guys considering from network planning to promotion to education? What are you guys thinking about relative to this topic?
I think that's an interesting part of the discussion. We've been talking about promotion and promotion of telehealth and how a provider could be doing that. But I can tell you this, having been in this business 20 years, the adoption of technology happens on its own. So once something's easy enough to use, it is used. And once something, like the example of my parents again, once it's easy enough for them to use, they'll use it. Once Zoom is easy enough for a third grader to do their schoolwork, they'll use it. There needs to be a common acceptance and ease of use for telemedicine and telehealth. And there's nothing I can do as a provider to change that, right? I could promote that all day long, but I just have to be ready. So we've a few years ago we realized we really can't shape how people use the internet for whatever reason, right? We tried to include certain services with internet, whether it's voice or TV or whatnot, and everybody wants to do their own thing, but it has become a utility. And so in the last couple of years, we've just shifted to planning better networks and planning bigger pipes. The discussion was had, Will mentioned his upload and multiple users in the home sharing an upload. I talked about this in the last couple of weeks to multiple people. We've seen our work orders double because people are migrating en masse off DSL. It's too latent for video calls, it's too latent for voice calls, and it doesn't have the upload. And so as a provider, we're simply preparing for that wave. And what's interesting about this is COVID has brought it all to the forefront, right? And we know what's coming as a provider. And Brian and I were talking about this before the call. We know that there's a storm coming, there's a wave, and it's an opportunity, but it's going to be a huge amount of pressure for everyone in the broadband industry to keep up with what's going to happen next, because there's going to be a question of whether schools are in session come August and September. There's going to be a question as far as when medical professionals who are furloughed go back to work and what that looks like after this. So I could talk all day long to my clients and say, I'm going to hand you a device. I'm going to hand you a Fitbit. I'm going to defray some cost of an Apple Watch so you can monitor your heart. But there's some people that won't use it. There's some people that say, I'm an Android user, right? You don't have a single product to appeal to everybody as a provider. But what we realized is we have that one product, and that's the pipe.
Yeah, I think I was. Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
We're one step upstream even from Brian. We provide tools. We're in the kind of the efficiency business for the design and deployment of those networks that Brian's deploying, and we work with Brian's company and many more like his around the country and even globally. And they're all sort of saying the same thing. There's this sort of pent up demand and the surge in demand that's just gotten really exacerbated and intensified. And networks are going to have to get designed and deployed a lot faster to a lot more places. So, we're trying to help that, in that regard with providing software that's easier to use, but again, we're way upstream. You're connecting the providers as well with your middle mile networks, and that's critical. There's a lot of investment going on into that space, connecting rural health facilities and hospitals and others and providers. A lot of the people we talk to are more worried about that last mile to the home and doing the drops in the rural neighborhoods and connecting the actual homes. So on both sides of that bridge, the provider and the consumer, I guess, both need the same kind of high quality connectivity. make this work.
Yeah, I think there's a evolution is happening right in front of us. You know, we overnight went from businesses driving traffic during the day and residences driving it in the evenings, and overnight we flip-flopped that traffic. That's had a huge impact on networks globally. You know, and as we think about, you know, designing these networks, there's a lot of time that goes into trying to come up with the best design and you know, utilizing, you know, efficient tools like what Will has, and then, you know, working with service providers like Brian to figure out, well, what do you have in place? What, you know, what kind of existing assets can we leverage? Because especially as we're building these networks in rural America, you know, the cost per customer is obviously very expensive, but I do believe we've been seeing this evolution happen over several years now, where more and more rural communities are saying, hey, we've got to go build this network ourselves, right? I think in the chat room, folks have been mentioning like Chattanooga is a very high profile, great town. Shout out to Chattanooga, is, you know, really doing some really cool things and it brought gigabit to everyone there. And that's no easy task, right? You're building infrastructure that's physical, and it's something we can't, you know, outsource to cheap labor by any means. So and there's uncertainty. We're not sure exactly where the build's going to be, because there's a transition happening right now. I mean, we have 3 office locations hardly being used, and most of them have 2 pipes in there for redundancy. And so what are we going to do? But the good news is this pent-up demand is coming, and it's going to be actually a good news, bad news thing, right? Because there's only so much product out there that can be produced, say for and other things. You're going to see a lot of these communities that know they need to go ahead and build these networks, finally decide to go ahead and do it, or they've been sitting on the sidelines because it's a lot for community to try and go build something they've never done before, right? If they're going to take that on themselves. And it's just one aspect of broadband development. And you're going to see more and more of these folks jump in and say, let's go, we've got to do this for the community. But then that's going to have a huge impact on supply and demand. There's only so much capability across the country to do this type of work. And the work has been very strong with 5G and just the proliferation of broadband across the country. So it's going to be a good news, bad news kind of potential, you know, challenge that we're going to have to work through.
And as for those who were on earlier, saw Will's cartoon, you know, 5G, you know, it is the root of all evil right now, right? Just kidding.